Hey everyone, welcome back. I hope you all had a great Christmas spent with your family. Now let's start with a question. We already know that travel to the United States is down. We know that business revenue is down as well. But did you know that the tourism travel boycott to the US also affects their state tax revenue? If you already knew this, then I guess I'm the one living under the rock. But I heard an interesting conversation on the CBC's The Current, and I want to share it with everybody. They also had interviews with two very different snowbirds. One snowbird who is refusing to go to the US because of Trump. The other is still going and saying that we can't blame everything on one person. I have a lot to say about the second snowbird, so you're definitely going to want to stick around for that one. Today's backdrop is actually a follow-up from one I shared a few days ago. Steven saw my previous video, where I showed Canada's east-west center, and he sent over the geographical center of Canada, which is located in Nunavut. So Steven, thank you for sending this in, and for helping to highlight another important part of Canada. Before we get started with the CBC interview, I want to show a quick CTV report. It shows a significant increase in holiday travel this season, except for one destination. I think everybody knows which one that is. All right, let's get started.
CTV's Scott Hurst joins us now with more on Canadians' travel plans and where they're headed. Scott.
Marcia, during the holiday season, Toronto Pearson, Canada's busiest airport, is expecting more than 3 million passengers, so it'll likely be very busy. It is a similar story at airports right across the country, both big and small, but as the year comes to a close, one glaring travel trend stands out.
We have boycotted traveling to the States.
Travel to the United States continues to take a hit. In October, according to new data from StatsCan, the number of Canadians returning on trips from the U.S. was down more than 26% year over year. Political turmoil with the current U.S. administration erupted soon after Donald Trump returned to the White House, and he began poking fun at America's northern neighbor and attacking Canada's sovereignty.
Someone actually asked me for my opinion on this. If Trump had only attacked us economically and not gone after our country itself, would I feel any differently about all of this going on right now? I think I actually would. During Trump's first term, there were tariffs and plenty of economic nonsense that he tried to pull on Canada and the rest of the world. But even then, I was still traveling to the United States. But everything changed the moment he started saying Canada should be the 51st state. And even worse, when his followers blindly echoed it without question. That's when it crossed the line for me. So here's a question for you watching right now. Figuratively speaking, if Trump had never threatened Canada's sovereignty and was only about the tariffs, would things be different for you? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.
It is a trend that has remained consistent for much of the year, Canadians saying no to popular U.S. travel hotspots.
A lot of concern going forward about who is going to be traveling and will they be traveling back to the U.S., and time will only tell. But at this point, definitely I'm seeing a reduction in crowds and people and lineups and reservations and anything like that.
It is a similar story for Canadians traveling south of the border back by car. Return trips by Canadian residents from the U.S. on land declined more than 30% to 1.6 million in October. Here's one category that has turned around. Trips to Canada by U.S. residents is up for the first time in 8 months.
And that's a stat I love to hear. We also need to give credit to our US viewers who are choosing to support Canada's economy instead of their own. So honestly, a shout out to our US viewers. Now I want to move on to an interview on CBC hosted by Matt Galloway. He interviewed multiple people on his podcast. On a side note, I'm still wondering, how do I get on his show? I'd be interested to talk to him. If anyone knows, let me know. My wife keeps saying that if I want my channel to continue growing, I need to keep stepping out of my comfort zone. So that's my goal for 2026. Anyways, the first two clips I want to show feature two Canadian snowbirds with completely opposite reactions to what's happening right now. I'll start with a snowbird who has decided that he's done with the United States. And just a quick note, I'm only using bits and pieces from the podcast. If I play the entire thing, my video would be about 30 minutes long. And I know that's too long for a lot of you because I see the analytics. But if you want to watch the full podcast, as always, the link is going to be in the description below.
Good morning.
I looked at the forecast when I woke up, and it said it was minus 21 in Winnipeg this morning.
Yes.
Texas is a lot warmer. Why are you not going back there this year?
Well, the primary reason is the President of the United States. why do you want to spend time with an individual that insults your leadership of the country, insults the people who live here? And when he says he's got many friends here, well, I don't think he has. And it just doesn't make sense. Why should we support them when they're very derogatory to us? So we've decided to look alternate areas for our winter escape.
And where are you going to go instead?
We're going into Mexico, into
Playa de Carmen.
Playa de Carmen.
Okay.
What you're hearing right now is someone whose values expand more than just revolving around himself. If you're not sure what I mean by that, it means he doesn't have the me attitude. And I commend him for that, as well as thousands of other snowbirds who have decided to go elsewhere, or even stay home instead of supporting the US economy. Now I'm going to fast forward a bit, because this snowbird isn't someone new who just decided to stop going south. He's been heading south for well over a decade. And even with all that history, he still decided to call it quits on the US.
I mean, tell me a little bit about how long had you gone to Texas?
Oh, since probably 12, 15 years. You would go for late October, early November, and then come back by April the 1st.
And so you would have friends down there? You'd be part of a community down there?
Yes, most of the people in Pine de Palm, where we were, are Canadians, and a lot of them were contemporaries from our neighborhood up here in Fort Garry and Winnipeg.
12 to 15 years of being a snowbird, and then changing directions to Mexico is not an easy thing to do, especially if you own property in the United States. But it really goes to show that no matter how much history there is, a lot of that can be broken in a heartbeat. And for some people, like this next snowbird we're about to hear from later, they're still clinging on to that history. They just can't let it go and would rather continue supporting the economy of a country that is threatening the one that you're from. Oh my God, okay, eat this. Here. Apologies. She figured out the treats trick. I'll have to come up with something new to keep her occupied.
Was it a tough decision for you to not go back there? I mean, as you said, you weren't pleased with what the U.S. president was saying, but
Right.
did you have to mull it over, or?
Well, it was a question my wife asked after the border closed because of the pandemic. What do you do with your property when you're 3,000 clicks away and you can't access it? You can't even look at it. When we finally got down after being away for over a year, there were a number of issues like plumbing had broken and other things that you would normally look after in maintenance, but there's no one down there that you can rely on to look after things. So that was probably the first part of our thinking, to be that far away and maybe being isolated from it. And then Mr. Trump arrived, and with all his glory.
Do you have friends who are still going back down? I mean, despite everything, they have decided that it's the right thing for them to do to go back to Texas?
Yes, and some of them are for health reasons. They can't take the cold. It's a circulation issue or other medical issues, and they need to be someplace warm. So, yes, they've gone. They'll be drifting back probably within the next 2-3 weeks, and we can then talk to them and see what their experiences were.
Just finally, what do you think it would take for you to get back to the United States?
Well, firstly, the change in attitude for Mr. Trump, his removal and all the people around him. And see, the issue is not only him, he talks to a lot of people, and a lot of Americans think he's telling the truth and the way to act. So you come down and you wonder, are you going to be a target? Are you going to be subject to some abuse? You don't need that. And when he's gone, I think the temperature will lower and the feeling will be much better. And we can get back to being normal if that's possible.
I know a lot of people are hoping that things will cool down once Trump is gone. But for me, and this is just my opinion, I don't see how that happens. I don't know how you cool down the rhetoric from the 77 million people who voted for him and who will still likely be pushing the same rhetoric after he's gone. This doesn't revolve around one person in the White House. Trump is just the loudest voice, amplifying the right, and the right isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Keep that in mind as we move on to the next snowbird.
Joanne and her husband are among the Canadians still deciding to go to Texas, or down to Florida, pardon me, and she is in Zephyr Hills, just north of Tampa. Joanne, good morning to you.
It's Joan.
Joan, pardon me. My apologies.
That's okay.
Tell me a little bit
I've been called worse.
Tell me a bit about why you're deciding to go down to Florida. What is it? We just heard from somebody who said he's not going to Texas. You're going to Florida. Why are you making that trip?
I guess there are a number of reasons why. Number one, I guess we love it here. We've been coming here. This will be 2026 will be our 13th year being here. We have property here. We have a lot of friends here. Yeah. The lifestyle, the climate, all of those reasons are the reasons we're here. This is our winter home, and it has been, and we've been very happy here and hope to continue to be so, even with the issues that have occurred.
You know, Joan, you can get that in a lot of places around the world. Places that aren't actively trying to take over the country that you're from. Just saying.
Throughout the country and the administration that is now in power.
Tell me about those issues. You told our colleagues in Moncton that earlier this year you had some uncertainty about returning back to Florida.
I think everybody did. There was concern about going across the border. You hear horror stories. Our entrance to the United States was absolutely flawless. Excuse me. No problem whatsoever.
Just because you aren't having problems doesn't mean it isn't happening. Maybe you have the preferred skin color. Again, just saying.
And last year when we left in the spring, I think there was a bit of concern as to what the feeling was going to be of fellow Floridians that were here, what the American people might feel. But I have encountered none of that at all. In fact, I've laughed and said for Canadians, we're always telling, historically, we get teased about the fact that we say, oh, we're sorry. We're always saying we're sorry. That has changed now. It's the Americans who are saying sorry.
Not all U.S. citizens are saying sorry. That might be true within your own little bubble, Joan, but you have to realize that a small circle of friends in Florida doesn't represent a large portion of the population outside of that bubble. I just showed a few screenshots of U.S. citizens who exist well outside of your bubble of apologetic U.S. citizens. And those people are definitely not sorry in how they view Canada. So in my opinion, you need to step outside of that small circle of friends and actually see what's out there. Just because your friends are saying sorry doesn't mean the rest of the US is. Let me know in the comments below if you agree with me on this.
Part of this is about people feeling that they don't want to be in a country where the president is insulting our country and saying he's going to take it over and what have you. Did the comments by Donald Trump give you any pause at all?
The comments by Donald Trump infuriate me more than I could ever tell you. Yes, I find it very upsetting, and I think every Canadian does, and rightfully so. But I think the thing that you have to remember is that this is one individual, Matt. It's not the population. I'm sure as in every country, Canada and the U.S. or any other country in the world, there are people who have extreme ideas.
It isn't just about one individual in the White House. It's about the 77 million people who put him there. The issue I have with your view, Joan, is that it sounds like you're surrounding yourself with people who make it seem like the United States is nothing but flowers and potpourri and lavender. Like everything is great, everyone is saying sorry to you, and everything is fine and dandy. I know there are a lot of great US citizens. I have thousands of them in my comments. But unfortunately, it is a different reality than what you're speaking of. To be honest, when I look at my haters, even in my own comments, and the haters that we see over at Josh's channel from the enemy from within, it's clear you're overlooking something. That so-called extremist side that you're talking about is a lot larger than you think. I haven't even brought up US exceptionalism yet, which absolutely exists on both left and right, and probably even exists within your friends. Now I'm going to move on to the next segment, but if you want to hear her full interview, the link is in the description below. The last segment from Matt talks about a bit about the tourism tax, and I wanted to show this because it's not just the retailers and hospitality businesses that are hurting. Our tourism money also goes towards state and city-funded events and programs, and that impact is often overlooked.
Well, the big news you're going to see is come February, when they're starting to work on next year's budgets, all of a sudden, all those taxes that they're getting from the accommodations tax, the food preparation tax, the different taxes, the admissions taxes, all those revenues, the sales taxes in Buffalo, for example, would be another one. They take a big portion of that to help run those cities. So the US tax system is different than the Canadian one, where a lot of those tourism taxes actually fund a lot of local and state services. So when you take away that tax base, all of a sudden you're looking at, there's been estimates in Orlando, for example, that 29% of the property tax is saved by the tourism taxes. So you're not going to raise taxes 29% on property taxes. So what are you going to do?
Something's going to be cut.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is something I don't think gets talked about enough, because the focus, even on my channel, has always been about the retailers, the hotels, the restaurants, and any other tourist-related spending. But with the lower spending, and we already know this is happening in some states, where Canadian credit card spending is down by almost 50%, states, cities, and counties are going to have a much harder time balancing their budgets for 2026. And if the money isn't there, something's got to be cut. Who gets cut first? I have no idea. I don't live in the US, so I'm not really too sure. But what I do see is that this boycott is affecting a lot more than just tourism-related businesses. And I wouldn't be surprised in 2026 if we start hearing US local media say things like, so-and-so just announced cuts to, and then fill in the blank. The last small segment I want to show you talks briefly about the credit card spending.
The stats are one thing. What do we know about how significant the drop is in terms of Canadians not heading to the United States?
There's a number that everyone seems to be ignoring. There was a big report done with the US, all the northern states that just put out. 2 of the states recorded the credit card spending. And both of them, Montana and Vermont, were down over 40 to almost 50% in credit card spending. And that's the real number, because people look at the border numbers going across. Well, that counts everyone who's going across for work or crossing for, transport trucks and stuff like that. When you look at the credit card numbers and we're seeing spending down between 40 and 50%, that is showing that it's having a real impact.
I completely agree with Dr. Wayne Smith from the Toronto Metropolitan University. Border numbers and border crossings on either side of the border are becoming a bit of a mixed metric with far too many factors that are baked into them. I was sent an email a while ago from a nurse here in Canada who told me she dreads crossing the US every day for work. But if you count her crossings alone, that's about 20 crossings a month being added to the total. But she isn't crossing for tourism reasons, it's for work. That's why for me, credit card spending has become my new favorite indicator. It shows how our boycott, or what has now become a new way of life for us, is actually affecting the United States. I really encourage you to watch or listen to the full CBC podcast hosted by Matt Galloway. Dr. Wayne Smith brings up a lot of excellent points that I 100% agree with him. So if you have time, it's definitely worth the listen. That's all I have for today's video. It went on a bit longer than I originally planned, but if you're still here watching to the end, I sincerely appreciate you sticking around. Watching to the end does help the algorithm to share this video with more like-minded people around the world. Have a great rest of the day, everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.